Precision. Performance. Olympic champion Victoria Pendleton dedicates every day of her life to being the fastest woman cyclist on Earth. She's sponsored by PepsiCo's sports drink, Gatorade, which claims to rehydrate her body faster than water. It's a product of the revolution in functional foods, commodities manipulated by science and marketing to promise health and wellness. This is the modern battleground where industry titans are fighting for dominance in the global food business.
The whole area of health and wellness has become absolutely central to everything that the food industry does.
One simple product embodies this modern food revolution: yogurt. It's the most versatile of all foods.
The fantastically useful thing about yogurt from a marketer's point of view is that it really has been all things to all people.
And big business has transformed it into some of the most profitable brands in the world.
For manufacturers, the holy grail is always increased margin, added value. With some of these specialised, heavily packaged yogurts, you're talking about profit margins over 15%, 17%. That's what all manufacturers dream of.
With exclusive access to the world's most powerful food companies, we reveal the story of yogurt, from hippie food to superfood in 40 years. This is the story of the foods that make billions. Early morning in Tokyo. As the city wakes, 8 million people across the country have started their day with a bottle of Yakult. It is a fermented milk drink with added bacteria that the company claims will help digestion. Over the past 4 decades, this Japanese drink has penetrated the global marketplace, and today, worldwide sales stand at £2 billion. 28 million people in 32 countries around the world drink Yakult daily. When it landed on British shelves in 1996, it changed forever our understanding and expectations of food, driving a revolution that created a new market of functional and superfoods.
What those terms have come to mean is foods that have some kind of health benefit. And it can be either an intrinsic and natural health benefit in the way that oats naturally lower your cholesterol, or blueberries are full of antioxidants, or it can be something that's been added, so in the sense that yogurt has got a bacteria added to it, which makes it yogurt, but can also have an additional health benefit in terms of supporting your immunity or your digestive health system.
By 2013, it's predicted that the functional food market will be worth £180 billion worldwide. And with 250 new entries in the UK market every year, competition is fierce in an already crowded supermarket.
You see more new products launched in the UK than any other market in the world, but most of them actually don't succeed because that competitive marketplace, it really is natural selection at its best.
The driver of the booming health market is increasing consumer awareness of the relationship between food, nutrition, and health. And where the consumer goes, the industry jumps in.
Nutrition, healthy nutrition, is a door opener for well-being. And therefore, we said that in the future, the food industry has to assure that we offer the best nutrition.
On parle beaucoup plus de santé active que de santé basique. C'est quelle est l'action que l'alimentation va avoir sur votre santé. Non pas en médicaments, mais surtout en prévention. Comment le fait de bien manger prépare mon corps pour les 30 ans, les 40 ans, les 50 ans qui viennent.
consumer today is really looking for more healthy, more nutritious choices. And therefore, if we want to be a successful business in 10 or 20 years' time, better figure out ways of giving those consumers what they want.
The clear, undisputed frontrunner in this new market is yogurt. It has proved to be the most versatile of all commodities. Before it became a scientific superfood, it first went big in the UK as a fun pudding. Today, 70% of us regularly buy yogurt. But it's a market that 60 years ago simply didn't exist.
Yogurt is probably the only real innovation in the food business since the war. The only product which is completely new. If you've gone into a shop before the war, you'd never have seen a yogurt.
So how did this basic commodity make vast fortunes for the food industry and find its way into our daily lives? Post-war Britain. Food rations were coming to an end, but the mainstream British diet was still strictly traditional. Yogurt was weird stuff, sold in obscure health food shops hidden amongst the lentils. It was sour, sharp, and eaten by foreigners.
Our dairy industry was always founded on butter, milk and cream and cheese. And if we were going to have milky things that were sour, we might have buttermilk, but certainly not yogurt. So in Britain, the manufacturers of yogurt were having to start from a position of zero consumption, essentially.
But in 1963, all that was about to change. Our traditional dairy industry was on the cusp of a revolution, triggered by the launch of an entirely new brand. It was yogurt's major makeover moment.
I think that the name ski instantly summoned up a sort of glamorous world of skiing holidays. And it was a kind of slightly aspirational thing. It sort of seemed to summon up purity, cleanliness, foreign travel, glamour, health, all in one brilliant monosyllabic word.
Ski undoubtedly changed yogurt when it appeared on the market because it was the first major national brand to appear. And it was really at the forefront of the development of the product.
Ski was invented by a Swiss businessman. He added sugar and real fruit to sour yogurt. It was a masterstroke, making it appeal to Britain's sweet tooth.
Adding sugar has been a way to get us to try new things, and it's been the process which has changed all sorts of bitter things into mass market products.
We had to add lots of sugar and fruit into the thing. It actually got a long way away from the original concept of yogurt, and it became more a dessert.
Young people, and particularly young people with children, discovered yogurt as a really very nice tasting, very healthy product. And of course that held out the prospect of several decades of market growth.
By sweetening yogurt, Ski uncovered the commercial potential of an unloved food. It created a market in the UK that had never previously existed and provided the industry with a winning formula. In fermenting milk, adding fruit and sugar, they could charge nearly £1 for a pot of Ski. This was nearly 4 times the price of milk, the raw commodity. It's a formula the business calls adding value.
Added value is where you take something that's a basic, cheap, raw commodity product like milk, say, and you start processing it or packaging it or marketing it in a way that moves it up the chain so that you can actually add to its value at each point. You can charge more for what you're doing at each point, and you can charge more and more the higher up the value chain you move.
If you're selling something with added value, it's something where you have turned the raw material into something that the consumer either couldn't or wouldn't do themselves, and they're therefore prepared to pay for it.
By the end of the 60s, Ski had driven the UK yogurt market to £10 million a year. And with success, inevitably, came imitators.
we finally decided that we needed to have a strong brand up against the ski and in the yoghurt market because the market was growing so strongly.
The new brand, Prize, was a sweetened fruit yoghurt just like ski. As with so many processed foods, if it tasted the same as the competition, the ad men would have to do the hard work.
Prize was fundamentally the same product as ski, and we differentiated it with an absolutely wonderful advertising campaign.
When you're a second brand, you just can't talk about things which the brand leader can. So talking about health and fitness, for example, would have been very nice. That was what was driving the market so fast. But for a second brand, you have to be a differentiator.
While ski was family, outdoors and adventurous, Prize was manly and powerful. For nearly a decade, ski and Prize battled it out. But by 1982, ski emerged triumphant. The battle had grown the market to over 800 million pots of yoghurt a year. Beyond the advertising, there was something else about the product that appealed to a changing Britain.
I think the growing acceptance of yoghurt from the 70s and 80s onwards goes along with a whole change in attitude on British consumers, kind of opening up of new worlds. People are starting to travel. It's part of a much wider opening up of British tastes and are moving beyond traditional foods.
While yoghurt advertising appealed to changing attitudes, its packaging could evolve with our changing lives. At the heart of it all, the pot.
The pots are crucial because there's these small little packages give you the idea that you can help yourself anytime. It's incredibly convenient and you can sort of eat in an individual way on the move, whatever.
This was an era where the famous family meal, mum, dad, 2.4 children, sat down and had together. This was the era where that was breaking down and where kids were coming in and snacking on the quiet. So yoghurt played directly into that convenience aspect. A pot of yoghurt, a spoon, and, a meal is prepared.
Right from the start, yoghurt is something that you give to an individual. It's your complete little pudding that you can have, just one person, one portion.
By 1980, the yoghurt business had grown from nothing 20 years before to a market worth over £120 million. But there was a threat looming. The fat in food had become public enemy number one. Suddenly, dairy produce, traditionally the epitome of good health, was now part of the problem.
The dairy industry was looking like a bit of a villain. I mean, great blocks of fat called cheese and butter and cream and even milk products, let alone yogurts. If you think about it, it's not a very good area to be in at that sort of time.
Right, Chris. How have we done this week?
Not too bad. Not as good as last week, though.
Well, it never is as good the second week, love.
While calorie-counting Weight Watchers grew in numbers, British dairy was staring down the barrel of a gun. As with all successful parts of the food business, dairy would adapt and innovate to capitalize on changing tastes. Yogurt would prove to be the savior for the sector. It was a blank canvas. Just as it made a good pudding, it could also be low-fat and healthy.
Consumers were beginning to be concerned about healthy eating, and we took a long, hard look at where consumer trends were going and identified an opportunity to launch a very, very low-fat yoghurt.
Yoghurt, like the sort of best of processed foods, has succeeded because it manages to reinvent itself. And in the 80s, you've got an increasing concern about diet-related diseases really coming to the fore. And the industry manages to reinvent yoghurt to tap into those concerns as something that's going to help you in this great fight.
By taking out both the fat and sugar from the yoghurt and replacing it with a sweetener, St Ivel appeared to have come up with the answer to the nation's concern over fat. Shape. Perfect for the new British family. Within a year, it had won 10% of the business.
The next phase of the market was to have a lighter, lower-fat product, and that's reflected in the word shape and the brand shape, and that represents the next generation, if you like, the next phase of the yoghurt market, where health, active health, is a more prominent feature.
Some manufacturers in that part of the industry realised that if they continued to nail their colours to high-fat, pretty bland products, that they had no future. And so that was the spark, if you like, to the innovation that we've then seen in the last 20 years.
Yogurt was now firmly established as the flexible friend to business. It was versatile enough to be quickly redeveloped by the food processors and rebranded by the ad men. For British Dairy, the little pot of yogurt was turning into a little pot of gold. But in the food business, getting consumers to love your product is only half the battle. Delivering it to them is another matter. Inserting itself between the yogurt makers and their customers was a new rising power, the supermarket.
If you were to go back to the 1950s, the average supermarket would have been only 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, about the size of a tennis court or so. The average supermarket today is more like 40,000 square feet, about the size of a football pitch or thereabouts.
The way we shopped was changing rapidly, but the untold story of the rise of supermarkets is the dramatic changes they implemented behind the scenes that would transform the food industry forever. To keep their stores fully stocked, supermarkets forced changes to distribution, which stripped control away from manufacturers and exposed them to far tougher competition.
Up to the early 1980s, the manufacturer had some sort of power. The manufacturer distributed directly to every individual store in the country, and therefore had some control over stock taking and shelf space in the chiller cabinet.
Dairies like Eden Vale and St Ivel went store to store, deciding which products and how many to put on the shelves.
And then suddenly, that all changed. The retailer decided to go to central distribution, which means that the manufacturer was asked to deliver his products to a very large central depot and no longer to have any sort of relationship with the store.
New players, for whom distribution had previously been a barrier, could now enter the market.
Yoghurt was very much a product that was delivered by refrigerated trucks on behalf of the yoghurt manufacturer, and the big change in the market came when deliveries were centralised and shops were able to buy a range of products rather than really be supplied by one manufacturer.
The UK market, with the change in distribution with the retail trade, was wide open for almost anybody to come in.
The biggest threat came from overseas. First in line was a German dairy giant, Müller. It would change the landscape of the industry. Their innovation and ambition would uncover highly lucrative new markets. In 1986, armed with their twin pot fruit corner, the company secretly approached a British dairy businessman.
The then managing director came over with this fruit corner in his suitcase, not even chilled, but in his suitcase, and he thrust it at me and he said, "What do you think of that?" And it was absolutely fantastic. It was like nothing I'd ever tasted.
One pot good, two pots better. Ken Wood thought the product and its packaging were so innovative that he was prepared to take a risk. It would prove to be a textbook case in how to expand a market and would leave the homegrown companies in tatters.
I think I was a frustrated yogurteer. I found the industry amazingly starchy and stuffy and full of lots of old men in smoke-filled rooms talking about the demise of the Milk Marketing Board and how complex it would be in the future. There was always a good reason why they couldn't do things.
While Kenwood began preparations for Muller's UK launch, the competition had sniffed around, but decided the product had one fatal flaw: the price.
I went to Germany, and we were actually taken round the Muller factory and shown the twin pot being produced. And I rushed back to the UK saying, I've seen this really, really exciting product. And we took it out to market research. And the response from consumers was twofold. Some of them loved it. But when we then showed consumers the price at which it would need to be retailed, most of them held up their hands and said, look, really, that is too expensive. So we did nothing.
At the time, a pot of Shape cost 22 pence, while the Muller fruit corner was to retail at 35 pence, over 50% more expensive. There was only one thing that could justify this difference: the price of luxury.
It was undoubtedly a risk for Muller to come in at a significantly higher price point. But there were extra costs involved, and the success of brands is to price at the point you think consumers will value what you're offering, and a premium price can be justified if there is an added benefit to consumers. And in this case, they added theatre to the experience of eating a yoghurt in a way that hadn't been seen before.
The twin pot really was a treat, with more calories in a fruit corner than a Cadbury's cream egg. But it was right for its time, an age of decadence, luxury, and spoiling yourself.
Part of the appeal of yoghurt had always been these little individual pots, but Muller, by adding that corner of something jammy in the corner, had taken it a stage further. Muller were packaging it as something that was an outright treat, and it really just opened up the market to a whole lot of consumers who wouldn't otherwise have seen themselves as yoghurt eaters.
The Muller fruit corner so appealed to Britain's taste buds that within 4 years it was the biggest selling yoghurt in the UK.
In business, one is ruled by a number of emotions, and one of them is fear. And the fear is that your competition will get to the next big idea before you. And I didn't feel that fear when the Muller market share rose to 3%, but I did feel a small frisson of anxiety. If you really do ask me to identify my number one regret in business, it would be that we didn't figure out the power of the twin pot a little earlier than we did.
Business had transformed yoghurt from hippie food into pudding. Now it was also a shameless luxury. The Muller takeover was a masterclass in how to build business by exploiting yoghurt's versatility to its full potential. Britain was truly cornered.
There was a stage that Mr. Muller said to me, look, I tell you what, rather than being paid a salary, I'll pay you an amount per pot. And I thought, oh no, the risk is too great. 1.3 billion pots later, maybe that was the wrong decision.